10 Downing Street, the seat of the British Prime Minister and the venue for important talks on security in Europe, where Keir Starmer welcomed the Polish President today to discuss key issues.
Poland and Great Britain are close allies for decades, but it's not time for history. Now we are especially strong, and this strategic partnership is nowadays most important in the field of security.
The United Kingdom is an important ally of Poland. There is no shortage of pressing issues to discuss: Russian aggression, the war in Ukraine, the tense situation in Iran, and the United States' security strategy for Europe.
There are so many issues in terms of Europe and world events that we need to discuss together. But we do that as like-minded countries that work together, respect each other, and want to build on that. And so it's a real privilege to welcome you. You're very welcome.
Curbing Russian territorial ambitions requires close cooperation between allied countries. The British are helping to strengthen Europe's eastern flank. They support Poland in securing the eastern flank of the alliance. Last year, for example, British fighter jets were stationed for several months at the airbase in Malbork. British reconnaissance and patrol aircraft regularly fly over Poland, for example, to check what is happening in the Kaliningrad region, so this presence is visible. The Polish President and the British Prime Minister unanimously emphasised the importance of solidarity among allies in the face of the growing threat from the east. And these words have a real impact on the strengthening of our security. We talked about military cooperation between Poland and the United Kingdom. As we know, there are over 100 British soldiers in Poland. The United Kingdom also showed solidarity after the drone attack on the Polish border in September last year. This was the subject of our discussion. We also discussed cooperation between the Polish and UK arms industries. Strengthening military potential and diplomatic efforts are key to ensuring security in the region.
Karol
Nawrocki is the highest-ranking Polish politician on the international stage. His active diplomacy, including this visit to the United Kingdom, is very important and confirms the aspirations of the Polish president and the Polish people to play a more important role on the international stage, especially compared to what Poland's Prime Minister is doing. Karol Nawrocki is not a hostage to foreign interests. Whatever he does is unapologetically in the interests of Poland. President Karol Nawrocki also met Great Britain's Polish diaspora. Crowds gathered at the National Army Museum and the President addressed his countrymen saying, "You are ambassadors of Polishness." President Karol Nawrocki's meeting with the British Prime Minister takes place at a time when talks on security are being held amid intensifying Russian aggression. During a night attack on Odessa, the Polish consulate was among the targets. Another night of Russian terror. As a result of the night bombing, the Polish consulate in Odessa was damaged. None of our employees was injured. Russia has once again shown its hand. It carried out massive attacks on Kiev and Kharkiv. Among other things, a children's rehabilitation centre was targeted. There are fatalities and injuries. Apartment blocks, shops and entire neighbourhoods have been destroyed. The Kremlin also struck power plants to deprive people of heating. Russian attacks on infrastructure, especially energy infrastructure, occur cyclically, precisely in order to hit the civilian population and break the resistance of the Ukrainian state. Because Russia attacks on multiple axes simultaneously, this is its strategy. These are not just attacks on military infrastructure, but primarily attacks on civilian infrastructure. Ukraine is defending itself and waiting for the results of diplomatic efforts. Cooperation with the White House and President Trump is needed because this is the only way to actually force Putin to accept peace terms that are favourable both to the West and to Ukraine. Only strong Western alliances can stop Russian imperialism. Hence, President Karol Nawrocki's active approach to international diplomacy, which began in Washington with a meeting with US President Donald Trump. This was followed by Rome and a visit to Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, Vilnius, Riga, Helsinki, and now London. A strong alliance and a strong eastern flank are what guarantees peace in Europe.
Another night of systematic violence in Iran, where the situation is entering a new, extremely dangerous phase. Security forces acted according to a single pattern: quick entries, live ammunition, mass arrests. In many cities, protests were broken up before they could fully develop. Where people took to the streets anyway, shots were fired. The cutting off of the internet and telephone services meant that information was only coming in fragments. Families have been left in the dark for hours about what happened to their loved ones who were detained during the night. Human rights organizations speak of hundreds of victims, and unofficially, even thousands. According to some reports, as many as 12,000 people were killed.
Iranian people are hostage by a terrorist government for over 75 hours now, and we are disconnected from our loved families and from our sisters and brothers inside Iran, which we know that at the moment they are getting massacred and killed by these terrorists, by machine guns, and we want the world to hear our voice and help us.
The authorities are no longer trying to soften their message. In official statements, they announce harsh sentences and executions, accusing the protesters of acting on behalf of foreign countries. In this narrative, not only the demonstrators are to blame, but also the West. We are prepared for any scenario. If they, the United States or Israel, want to try a military confrontation, which they have already attempted and failed, we are ready now as well. What's more, after the last war, we are even better prepared, both in terms of the quality and scale of our capabilities. If they decide on other options, such as diplomacy or sanctions, we are ready for that too. Whatever path they choose, Iran is ready. Washington responded to this message almost immediately. U.S. President Donald Trump issued an unprecedented statement, directly calling on Iranians to continue protesting and take over state institutions. The U.S. president cut all ties with representatives of the regime and announced aid for the protesters. Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, save the names of the killers and abusers. They will pay a big price. I have canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. Help is on its way. Make Iran great again. Washington also announces 25% tariffs on countries that continue to do business with Tehran. This is a blow to the regime's financial base and a signal to its partners that further cooperation with Iran will be costly. Other scenarios are also being analyzed in parallel, from further strengthening sanctions through cyber operations and communication support for protesters, to the most radical option, precision strikes aimed not at the state, but at specific decision-making centers and individuals responsible for the repression. At this moment, I am deeply concerned about reports of increasing violence by the police and the so-called Revolutionary Guard in Iran against their own people. I take this opportunity to once again call on the mullah's regime to immediately stop this violence. If a regime can only maintain its power through brute force, then it is already finished. I assume that we are witnessing the last days and weeks of this regime. In this context, one name is increasingly heard on the streets: Reza Pahlavi. He is the son of the last Shah of Iran, who was overthrown in 1979 during the Islamic Revolution. Under the Shah, Iran was a secular state, focused on modernization and limiting the influence of the clergy on politics. Social and cultural life was much more liberal than it is today, although the government was authoritarian. The Islamic Revolution completely changed this order, handing the state over to religious leaders. The theocracy that emerged after the revolution has controlled politics, the military, and the courts for more than 4 decades. For the young generation of protesters, Reza Pahlavi is not a memory of a bygone era. He is a symbol of an alternative to the current system.
He's considering military strikes and a military option, maybe attacking IRGC and other security apparatus buildings and installations. The problem, of course, is that the Israelis did that, of course, in June. But they had an element of surprise there, right? And the element of surprise isn't there anymore because ever since the Israeli attack in June, the Islamic Republic has just steeled itself for another attack. So, and they keep saying it, and everybody admits that it's going to happen at some point. So they probably are in a heightened state of alert, meaning that they will react very quickly if that happens.
Meanwhile, the regime is trying to regain control of the narrative. Pro-government demonstrations are being organized in the largest cities. People are being brought in by bus, broadcast by state media, and presented as the voice of the people. This is a proven propaganda mechanism. The image of support is intended to cover up the scale of the rebellion and send a signal of strength to the regime's own apparatus. However, after several days of protests, it is becoming increasingly clear that these staged demonstrations are not stopping the people from the rebellion. The regime has failed to break the resistance, and brutality, instead of fear, is leading to further mobilization. At the same time, external pressure is growing, from the announcement of U.S. tariffs to signals that Washington is considering tough measures against those responsible for the repression. If these two processes continue in parallel, Iran may find itself at its most dangerous point since the 1979 revolution, caught between a rebellious population and a world that is increasingly unwilling to stand by and watch.
On Friday, Polish farmers protested in the centre of Warsaw against the agreement with Mercosur countries. Farmers in many European countries have also been protesting for several weeks. Today, more than 350 tractors drove through the main streets of Paris again, and tons of potatoes were dumped on the bridge in front of the National Assembly. French farmers are protesting for the second week in a row against a trade agreement between the European Union and Mercosur countries, which they believe threatens local agriculture by creating unfair competition from cheaper imports from South America. We are protesting against the Mercosur agreement. We will never agree to this type of agreement. Of course, we can enter into bilateral trade agreements, but we are not obliged to impose import quotas on certain products that we can produce ourselves in France, especially ethanol, alcohol, sugar and beef. Early in the morning, farmers drove their tractors into Paris. One convoy stopped at the Arc de Triomphe and the other in front of the French Parliament building. When we close all our sugar factories and slaughterhouses, we may wake up one day and realize that we are no longer able to feed the French people. This is a fight for farmers' interests, but also a fight for society as a whole, to preserve French production capacity for the future. Europe should be an opportunity for the agricultural sector to prosper. Today, Europe is working against us. On Friday, the agreement was finally voted on. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is travelling to Paraguay on the 17th of January to sign it.
This trial could determine the future of French politics. Polls show that Marine Le Pen is one of the favorites in next year's French presidential election. But it is possible that this time her candidacy will be blocked by a Paris court.
Which means that
this is an appeal process, which means that if the judge prohibits her from running, she will still be able to challenge this in the Supreme Court. But then, the case will not be resolved before the 2027 elections. The trial is attracting significant attention within France. Last year's first instance court ruling for alleged misuse of European Parliament funds for party activities, in addition to a 4-year suspended prison sentence, imposed an immediate ban on Le Pen from holding public office. This caused the greatest uproar. Accusations were made that the court was acting on political orders, which mobilized right-wing supporters. Marine Le Pen announced at the time that she would not give up easily and would fight till the end. Like you, my friends, we are the ones who do not give up, do not bow down, do not abdicate. Never forget why they are attacking us so brutally. They are doing it for one reason only, because we are winning. We are winning more and more clearly. Despite being under relentless fire in establishment media, Le Pen's party, the National Rally, has long been the clear leader in the polls and continues to gain support. Hence, the numerous voices and accusations against the French authorities of violating the principles of democracy and politicizing the judiciary in order to eliminate the establishment's main competition. It would be very dangerous for democracy if the judiciary deprived the French people of a presidential candidate who has been in the second round twice and is currently considered the undisputed favorite. She will prove her innocence, and being in politics does not put you above the law, but it also does not put you below it. In case Marine Le Pen is unable to run in next year's election, her party has a plan B. The young leader of the National Rally, Jordan Bardella, will run instead. Polls at the end of last year indicated that Bardella would win the 2027 election regardless of who his opponent would be in the second round. However, he himself continues to support Marine Le Pen, who took over the party from her father, a party that is now closer than ever to taking power in France. In terms of the party's history, the court's ruling could be the end of the Le Pen family saga, which has been going on for over 50 years. Marine Le Pen is considering resigning. She has been here for 30 years and probably wants to do something else with her life, but she wants to decide for herself. She does not want to be pushed out of politics in this way. The trial will last 5 weeks. On February 12th, the court will announce its verdict, which will determine the political future of both Marine Le Pen and all of France.